We didn't start out wanting to make toys. We got the idea back in 2008, and that was when we saw the pitch for Toy Story 3. And we just said, did you see that beginning? That's where we ought to do our game. Being inside of a child's mind and their imagination and having those toys come to life, that was just an amazing idea. We loved the idea, but we knew it was going to be a hard sell because there was kind of an unwritten rule, or maybe it wasn't even written, but there was this rule that you just don't mash up the characters. We thought the best possible way to get this done is to pitch the idea to John Lasseter. About after 20 minutes, he went from being really sour on the idea to say, you know, there could be something here if you created a style or an aesthetic that allowed all these characters to exist together. And you could put them on the shelf and people would want to collect all these Infinity characters. The style, whatever you come up with, has to be wicked awesome. You know, this is coming from John Lasseter. I feel like I got this assignment from God that, you know, you need to create something wicked awesome. Initially, I started looking for talent outside of our studio. The art directors and production designers at Pixar and at Feature and toy designers outside of Disney. And the great news for me was the best work was coming from our own concept department inside of Avlanche. Yeah, just follow me. We'll just take you in here to our concept department. Jason had one of the first styles that I really thought was appealing. Actually, we have some of it up there. This one with the smaller feet and the big heads there. Oh, this is pretty fun. This was one of the first designs we did for Buzz Lightyear, which I think is still awesome, but it wasn't appropriate for the final audience that we wanted to go for.
Before we knew what Infinity was, we were going, we cast a wide net and we started playing with different ideas, and this was kind of part of an idea where they were magnets, you know, the head, the torso, and the legs were magnets, and you could swap them.
Turns out that magnets don't play very well with RFID fields, so even technically it was going to be challenging. Then we had another designer, John Diesta. John, why don't you come in here?
Hi.
John Diesta started doing some sketches that was along the lines of the Captain America up there and the Buzz Lightyear. Then when I said, okay, now how do I translate this into toys? Obviously, I've never done that before.
That's when we started doing manufacturing, we realized, okay, it was really good that we're picking up limbs because we didn't know that it was an issue. When you pull them out of the mold, they're very malleable, so they start to bend and flop over.
So it started expanding on that and took that idea back to John. Thankfully, he loved what we were doing. I think even before Disney bought Lucas, I think we even did some explorations with Star Wars characters just to see how broad our style was, that you could encompass all these different properties. It was probably a couple years ago that we had an idea that we were going to be doing this, but it's pretty exciting. Star Wars, you know. We started asking questions about, can we start working on Star Wars? And they said, oh, no, slow down. We got to come up with a roadmap, you know, plan of how we're going to do the films, that type of thing. And as soon as that started to roll out, then they were open to the idea of us doing Star Wars.
It's interesting looking at like the design you guys landed on, and coincidentally now, how similar it is to almost like the Clone Wars art style.
The funny thing about that is that we didn't take that into consideration at all, and then it didn't occur to us that we were similar to that until we actually started working on characters from Clone Wars, like Ahsoka. You know, it's oh, I guess so. And yeah, we got a lot of help from Lucas, obviously. Their art director there, Hez Chorba, worked closely with us. A wealth of knowledge. Is crazy how those people, it's like there's a Bible there that they, you know, that you have to strictly obey the 10 Commandments of Star Wars-ness, you know. A lot of times we try to hit the hardest ones first. Turns out Yoda was very difficult just because he is the Mickey Mouse of Lucas. And he's such a wrinkly guy, and our style is to smooth things out. Yoda was very challenging because there are so many different Yodas.
And what's funny is that the early versions of Yoda that we started doing was the older version. And then we realized that we wanted to put him into the earlier version, so episode 1 through 3.
And we also started exploring how big is he going to be compared to the other characters.
So we have to like, wait, so Stitch, he's taller than Yoda, right? And then we just get together, we're just like, yeah, that feels right.
I think we came out in a pretty good place.
And man, in-game is so fun.
We started Leia early on because females, when you're stylizing like this, it's difficult to capture their likeness, but stylize them in a way that's appealing, but yet reminds you of that character.
Very early on, these are the first kind of designs, and obviously that's like way too cartoony. And then this is kind of like going into the like super caricatured version, and then we were like, we have to bring in more likeness. So then we did this kind of paint up, which kind of felt awesome. Kind of felt like it's definitely getting there, but we were still searching for that appeal.
We worked closely with Lucas on deciding exactly what the personality that is correct for that character is. And in the case of Leia, they said she's a feminist. You know, she's powerful in that universe. She's ends up being the head of government, and in the situation, she's taking command through most of those movies. And so it was important that she doesn't look sultry or, you know, sexy in any way, that she looks in command and she's in control.
And so we were trying to develop this look that was both stern, for lack of a better word, but still very pretty. And so this is me just trying to sketch over, trying to get more of the likeness that is Carrie Fisher into here.
Is Team Fortress 2 kind of a common reference point for you guys?
Oh man, we love this style. They have exaggerated proportions, so it's still the bold shapes, but so iconic. Like, you look at him and you're like, I know that guy. I've seen a guy like that. And you instantly relate to them. And so that's what we're trying to do for these characters.
Well, when we start working on the pose, we want this character to be in a pose that no other character would look right in. And then second of all, we want it to just be very appealing on the shelf, obviously, because we want these never to go in a box or in a drawer somewhere. We want them to be on somebody's shelf when they're not playing in the game. I think the artist here did a pretty good job. Yeah. I think she's very, very pretty. Matt worked on Darth Maul. Part of our style is to simplify, and Darth Maul, especially in his head, he's very complex. He actually has 10 horns on his head, and Lucas, that was important to them.
So we gave him that option of 10 horns, which doesn't look too bad, but when you start looking at it, his whole head becomes just this big pointy crown. And so we gave him another option of only 8 horns. They ended up liking it, I guess, because that's what we went with.
I don't think you'll ever see this in any other Darth Maul toy, but each one of his little horns on top here is a separate piece. Just much cleaner edge and just makes it really sharp. I don't know how they're going to do it in mass production. I really don't. Yeah, and puncture test. That's another thing. Yeah, talk about that.
Yeah, so the more horns we do, the smaller it has to be. And since horns are pointed, the smaller the point, then the sharper it's going to be. So if you step on that, we wouldn't pass puncture tests.
We have all these safety issues we have to be concerned about, and the factory, they'll just make it super safe. You know, and we care about safety, yes, but we also care about the aesthetic of that safety, and so it's important for us to be there and work with the factory on getting it safe but looking good at the same time.
His lightsaber is like tip to tip angled just to fit inside the box. Like, it could not be at any other angle, any different way. This is exactly how he's gonna fit in the box. The difficult challenge of, getting some real action pose like this is he's got like 7 different layers to him.
Even at this phase, we were trying to figure out, what is Darth Maul wearing? Like, I think that he's wearing an undershirt, and then he has like a kind of like a karate gi with a vest on it, and then this loincloth, and then he's wearing a robe on top of everything. So you really, and it's all black. We figured out that it really doesn't matter when the wind is blowing. So as long as it looks cool, it'll pass. So yeah, just don't call us on it.
Moral of the story. just have
move it
around.
around.
Yeah.
The impression of Vader that was kind of in our heads was this menacing, like really overpowering force to reckon with. Then we looked back, because we got reference from Lucas, and he's not as imposing because he's fully lit. We could do that verbatim, or the way we stylize him is we like overemphasize his boldness.
He's a little bit, maybe even thicker than the real Darth Vader is, and that's just to amplify that forcefulness that he has.
Because we were still solidifying a relationship with Lucas, and so it was really nice to get their impression of like how they feel Darth Vader should be.
Lucas had really strong opinions about the pose that he ought to have.
So that's why we went with the choke pose.
Choke pose.
Choke pose.
The old choke pose. So many people are going to want the Millennium Falcon, and so many people are going to want an X-Wing in that style because it looks so great in the game.
I'm afraid that they're out of luck. We talked a lot about that. Those spaceships, I mean, they're characters. The problem is that if we introduced the vehicles like that, it needed to become something that was sustainable as a line. And there's not really other properties that would allow us to sustain that type of vehicle line of toys. Although we really wanted to do it, but just couldn't make it make sense.
What if you get the Millennium Falcon and you adapt it with the Cars universe, and you put the Cars eyes on
There
it.
you
And then
go.
it's like a McQueen figure.
There you go.
I'm sure Lucas would have no problems with that.
They would be all over that, yeah. Han, he was very difficult. We probably worked on his face more than any other face of any other character. His face is so expressive, and his face is very asymmetrical. It was hard to get a caricature of him.
His face is so subtle with all of his definition, and just have to hit it just right.
It's the secret episode 7 reveal.
John Vignacchi pointed out Han's face has a striking resemblance to yours.
I've been told that by a couple people. That it's not true.
Is that an ounce of you that wanted to inject yourself into Han?
No.
Okay. It's a bold choice to put a scar on there.
That was another thing that was really impressed upon us by Lucas, is that they felt like that was a detail that was really important to his character, actually. And in making toys, that type of fine detail is not easy to keep all the way through the process. It's like compression in video or something. It just gets lossy and you lose a lot of detail. I'm there in China working over the artists, making sure that detail is scratched in by hand at the very end to make sure that makes it into the final tool. We're trying our darndest to make it look as good as possible. We bought a 3D printer that we have in-house, and it's very important because we're able to get that printed out and we're able to see what details are important to us and what are not important to us. Because when it's digital and it's all on the monitor, everything is important. And our guys that do the sculpting, they do our 3D printing. And they care a lot about it, obviously, because it's their character and they want to see it look good to the end. So we're getting better at it. When I look back at some of the Infinity 1 characters, I'd like to do them again. Yeah. Myself and the other designers and sculptors here, we really look at this as pieces of art, and maybe we're a little too obsessive, and my wife would probably say, yes, I am too obsessive. And when that vision doesn't end up on somebody else's shelf the way we intended it, we just, I have to say that this is pretty exciting when I get these boxes. All the work that we've just described all the way through, this is the culmination of this. So what I've got here, I just received some packages this morning that are the production samples right off the assembly line from the factories. This is where I get to review so I hope it's good. I have no idea what this is going to be like. So here you have Han Solo. So far, so good. That's good news. And I'd go ahead and open one up. They'll ask me to sign one, and I'll put my signature on it and date, and I have to send it back to them to say
stamp of approval?
that's my stamp of approval. And he looks pretty good. I'm pretty happy with him.